Welcome to the Pretty Deadly podcast. My name is Susie Kahlich. I'm the founder of Pretty Deadly Self-Defense, a self-defense program that I developed based on my experiences as a violent crime survivor and my 25 years training in the Japanese art of jiu-jitsu. Welcome back to the Pretty Deadly podcast. I had to take a short break and record some more episodes, so sorry for the little pause, but we're back on track now with all new episodes ready to go for you. In the last episode, I talked about incidents of date rape I had experienced and what I did to disrupt a date rape as it was happening, thanks to my martial arts training. In this episode, I'd like to go all the way back to the main incident that put me on this path in life, the attack I survived in Los Angeles in the year 2000 that got me into martial arts and got me teaching self-defense. At the time of the attack, I had no formal self-defense training, and I absolutely had no formal martial arts training. But I'd like to go back now and take that incident from what I remember step by step and talk about the things that I could do were something like that to happen again. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about are already on our video channel on YouTube of free self-defense techniques. And remember, in Pretty Deadly Self-Defense, we use moves that you use every day, tweak them so they're a little bit stronger, and then apply them to self-defense situations. But they're all based in the martial art that I have studied for 25 years called ninjutsu or Nimpo Taijutsu. Anyway, let's just get right into it. So a brief overview. It's 4:17 in the morning. I'm sound asleep in bed. I have to get up because I have to go to the bathroom. There's a short hallway that my bathroom is off of. And when I get to the bathroom, just to the entryway, there's a man standing there. So the first thing that he did was lunge at me. He basically took either side of my head or either side of my neck. That part I'm not really clear on anymore, and shoved me up against the wall behind me. There wasn't a really big space, so I was still on my feet. He was trying to cover my mouth with his hands, basically trying to get me to shut up because I was screaming. At the same time, he was averting his face so that I couldn't get a good look at him. Now, having someone hold you against a wall or pin you against a wall by your neck or by your head or covering your mouth, all of those mean that the attacker has their arms extended, their elbows locked, and they're actually putting force onto their wrists and onto their hands. So what I could do now that I have all this training and I've created Pretty Deadly Self-Defense is a move that we call in Pretty Deadly scratch your back. What that looks like is the same move that you use to scratch an itch that you have on your back. So I would reach across my body and over both of his arms. So I wouldn't want to weave under and I wouldn't want to go under both of them. I would simply reach across my body as though I were scratching an itch on my back. At the same time, I would turn in the same direction as my reach, which would cause a wrist lock or a wrist break and would force him to let go. Trust me, when we train this in Pretty Deadly, we go really slow because it is unbelievably painful. Wrists will break when it's done at speed. The next thing that happened was the guy was trying to get me to the ground. He did get me to the ground. Now, at that time, and I think most people have the same fear, I felt that going to the ground was going to be a big disadvantage for me. So I really, really didn't want to let him get me to the ground. Now I know, after all my martial arts and self-defense training, that the ground can actually be my best friend. So while he was trying to force me to the ground, what I could do now is simply go with that move. So the general rule in martial arts is if you push, I pull. If you pull, I push. I'm going to take the momentum and I'm going to amp it by actually going in the same direction as you. That would turn that entire movement into a throw. To be really honest with you, there's maybe 10 or 15 seconds or 10 or 15 minutes, I have no idea, that I cannot remember during the course of the attack. And that's basically where that happened. How I ended up on the ground, I don't really know. That part is blacked out from my memory. I remember everything else. And I recently got the police report that I hadn't seen in over 20 years that actually listed everything that I said to the police at the time. So just a few hours after the incident happened, and realized that my memory has stayed true all of these years, which for whatever that's worth. I don't know whether that's valuable or not, but this particular section of memory and this particular part of the attack has always remained blacked out to me for whatever reason my brain has decided it should remain hidden from me. That's okay. Somehow I got to the ground. Now that I know with martial arts training that an effective thing that I could do in that situation is simply go with the momentum so I could turn that push to the ground into a throw. The next thing I remember is actually being on the ground. The guy is standing over me, but he's bent at the waist. The reason he's bent at the waist is because he has a fistful of my hair in his hand, grabbed close to the scalp. With the other hand, he's standing over me and he's punching. Now that I've trained in martial arts, I know that what I could do if I was in that situation again is put both of my hands on top of the hand that's grabbing my hair, and start to turn my body away. I want to turn away from the punch because I don't want to turn into a punch, of course. But as I'm kind of keeping his hand on top of my head and I'm turning away, I'm again causing a wrist break, which will force him to react to that pain rather than to me trying to get away. And that's a different reaction. What happens if we're holding something and we suddenly feel pain? We tend to let go. Now, I talked in an earlier episode about what my body actually did without my control to keep me safe in that situation, which was to completely relax. That meant that every time he punched me, I absorbed the punch. My head went with the punch, so much so that one of the punches came so hard, it whipped my head around so fast that it tore my hair out of my head. He ended up with a fistful of hair and I was free. I belly crawled to get to the kitchen. The thought that was going through my head was to get to the knives to defend myself. And I've said this many times before, because I had no training at that time, I'm really glad I didn't get to the knives because I would have been the one who was cut and probably worse. So it's a good thing that I didn't get there. But I also think that this is a really common idea that people have of I'll run to the kitchen and grab a knife to defend myself without ever learning how to defend yourself with a knife. So just a little plug there. That's something that we do teach in Pretty Deadly in level 3, how to defend yourself with a weapon, meaning how to use a weapon, as well as how to defend yourself from a weapon. As I'm belly crawling, the man came after me and grabbed my leg, I think. Actually, again, this part is I'm not entirely clear on anymore, but I'm pretty sure he grabbed my leg and flipped me over onto my back. Here's where self-defense training and martial arts training has come in. If I'm in that situation again and my leg is grabbed, I'll know that I can do what's called shrimping. This is something that is used in forms of Kung Fu and I think also BJJ. Shrimping simply means bringing your body back almost into a fetal position to quickly retract it and get close to your opponent. If someone grabs my leg and I shrimp, I would get close to them and I would get very close to a major balance point in their body, which would be the ankles. From that shrimping position, I would simply curl myself into a ball and bowl myself into their ankles, which would knock them over. The space that I was in was pretty small, so them being knocked over means they would have hit a wall or the door frame or something, but it would have definitely created a situation where it wouldn't have been easy for them to grab onto something and regain balance, and it wouldn't have been very easy to get up from that quickly because the space was so tight. Once I've got that person knocked over, then I can use my elbows or my knees or my entire body weight dropping on them to render them incapable of getting up quickly so that I can get away. As I said, the guy was standing over me. He grabbed my leg and flipped me on my back and then kind of walked up my body. So he had his feet on either side of my torso and again was bent over about to do something else to me. I'm not really sure what. And again, here is where I would shrimp actually in the opposite direction. Definitely I could have shrimped through his legs to end up on the other side of him or behind him basically, and again could have bowled my body into his legs, which would have hit the back of his knees, forcing him to fall over, except he would have fallen on me. So another way to deal with this would be to turn my body on its side and pull up into a fetal position. And again, instead of rolling into his ankles, I would roll into an inside knee, which would force his body to bend at the knee and again fall over. That would help me get away. At one moment, he stopped and stood up straight as though he was in the attitude of listening. And I've talked about before that I'm pretty sure what he was hearing were my neighbors waking up and scrambling to come respond to my cries for help. In that moment when he stood up and was listening, he was actually quite vulnerable because now his attention was no longer on me, but it was on something else that was happening. That is an excellent point, not only to get away, but again, also to take balance. Even though he standing up straight would have been in what we consider to be perfect balance, what's vulnerable in these moments are, again, ankles and knees, which are major balance points of the body. Any strike or push against a knee or an ankle will take a person down. It will force them to fall because you can't really resist that, especially coming from the inside or the outside of the knee, meaning not directly straight on top of the knee where the kneecap is and not directly behind. We never want to pull someone from behind the knee because that's going to pull them onto us. Instead, we always want to push the knee away. They may still fall a little bit on top of us, but we're going to be in a better position to get away. I don't regret not knowing martial arts for self-defense the moment that I was attacked. I did go through a period in my training where once I was gaining some skills, I thought, oh, I really wish I could have done this in that moment. I really wish I could have hurt that guy. But it's 25 years later, 25 years of training later, and I no longer feel that way. That doesn't mean that I've reached some point of Zen peace and forgiveness. Not at all. What it does mean is that I've reached a point of acceptance, that I knew what I knew at that time and I did the best I could. 25 years later of training, the training has helped me understand how we can use our bodies in small spaces, how we can use the balance of the other person, and where we can look for advantages and openings in those moments when we feel like we're most vulnerable. Learn more about Pretty Deadly, find classes near you, or learn about our trainer certification programs at prettydeadlyselfdefense.com. Follow us on Instagram at Team Pretty Deadly, and you can find my very inconsistently posted rantings about politics, capitalism, sexism, and whatever else comes to mind on TikTok at Pretty Deadly Boss. The music that you hear is Icarus Wish by Berlin-based band Dead Centuries.